The
actual content is like the other side.
bye. See you in the next
Bye
one.
bye.
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 See you.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Bukit Brown Cemetery is part of a larger complex which adjoins the cemeteries of Zheyin Hill, Lao Sua and Kopi Sua, covering over a total of 400 acres. It is named after George Henry Brown, a ship owner, trader and broker who bought a piece of land nearby at Mount Pleasant in the 1840s as his residence. After building a house on the hill, it was named Brown's Hill or Bukit Brown in Malay. It is also known as Kopi Sua, or Coffee Hill in Hokkien, later on, alluding to the colour of the drink and the fact that Brown unsuccessfully tried to grow coffee beans on his land. During the late Ming and early Qing dynasties, many Hokkien Ong clansmen left their homeland in southern China for Southeast Asia. By the late Qing dynasty, their descendants had settled in many parts of Southeast Asia, including Singapore. In 1872, part of Brown's land was bought by three wealthy Hokkien clansmen, Ong Chong Chew, Ong Kyu Ho, and Ong Yu Hai. They wanted a place where the living could reside and their departed ancestors could be buried. Some land, approximately 97 acres, was donated to the Hokkien Clan Association for dwelling, farming and burials, and is now known as the Zheyin Hill. In 1918, the colonial government bought a portion of the Ong burial site to be used as a Chinese cemetery open to all Chinese, not just members of the Hokkien clan. This was renamed the Bukit Brown Municipal Cemetery and was opened in 1922, operating until its closure in 1973.
Going into our observations of Bukit Brown Cemetery, tombs were differentiated by those that were well-kept and less well-kept. In this picture, the well-kept tomb had golden ornaments on its grave and gold writings with a clear picture of the deceased. The wordings did not suffer damage from wear and tear, which allowed us to identify who passed. Also, it was using cemented material, whilst the one next to it was covered by trees and in the dark. The picture was not clear and so was the wordings, which made it hard for us to identify who died. The tomb was built with bricks and suffered a lot of damage due to not being maintained properly. We believe the maintenance was linked to the deceased family's background, i.e. their status and wealth. Move on to the rich versus the poor. On the left side, you have the cemented mounds in the pauper section. According to traditional feng shui beliefs, burial mounds should be kept well maintained so that water would not pool on top, as that was considered bad luck, hence the green tarp over the mounds as a double protection against the rain. Usually these type of tombs are more expensive, as it may be considered paying the highest respects to those who pass, as well as the more grand the tomb is, the more feng shui it brings. But on the right side of the slide, tombs that are represented by bricks or stones could be seen as on the poorer side, as they could not afford this type of cemented mounds and could not afford the feng shui they need. Some notable tombs we saw was Tan Yin Kiam's tomb. His backstory is that he was one of the founders of the Overseas Chinese Bank, which later became the Overseas Chinese Banking Corporation. He also contributed a lot during the Sino-Japanese War, as he was the head of the Hokkien Division of the China Relief Fund between 1937 to 1942. And helped it raise funds. As such, because of his active role as a Singaporean, a small stone plaque or a business card left by the Kian Seng Huat Company that erected the tomb.
Most of the tombs found in Bukit Brown are Hokkien tombs, likely due to the fact that the land was initially owned by the Hokkien Ong clan before the government acquired the land between 1918 and 1919. Afterwards, the cemetery became open to the wider Chinese community. However, Hokkien and Teochew tombs have similar features, making it difficult to tell them apart. Both feature a courtyard in the front of the grave slab to gather in qi, or life force, and good fortune. Directly behind the slab is a mound of earth shaped like a woman's womb. From these two pictures alone, can you identify the differences and guess which one is Hokkien or Teochew? Firstly, Hokkien tombs have bricks outlining the womb-shaped mound, whereas Teochew tombs do not. Secondly, the Teochew tombstone seems to be resting within an armchair, while the Hokkien tombstone appears to simply sit in a rectangular box. Thirdly, the tombstone states the deceased ancestral village in China, serving to confirm if the tomb is indeed Hokkien or Teochew. Inscriptions on Hokkien and Teochew tombstones also vary slightly. Unlike Hokkien tombs, names of descendants may not be inscribed on Teochew tombs. Additionally, when a Teochew tomb is first constructed, the names of prospective occupants are painted in red. Only after burials take place are the names painted in green, while the surname is left in red. It is also common to see an altar beside each grave with the inscription Hou Tu or Fu Shen. This altar is dedicated to the earth deity, the Chinese earth god, to thank the earth deity for allowing the deceased person to use the deity's land to return his body to the earth. Depending on the economic background of the deceased, a shrine for the earth deity can be as large as a normal tombstone or as small as a simple brick. When a family pays respect to their ancestors, they also light up joss sticks and place offerings in front of the earth deity altar. Another interesting feature of the tombs were tomb guardians in various forms such as dog gods, lions, Sikh guards, or Chinese soldiers. Dog gods were seen as spiritual guardians of the entrance, keeping evil spirits away. The dog gods usually face each other in pairs. It is considered bad luck to place the figures back to back. Land sculptures have been used by the Chinese as guardians of buildings and tombs for hundreds of years. In cemeteries like Bukit Brown, they are usually found in pairs on the pillars at the front outermost corners of the tomb structure. Since the 19th century, most Sikhs initially came to take up jobs in the army and police force. Many also worked as watchmen and bodyguards to the wealthy. They were popularly known as Jagas, Malay for guards, and were looked upon as brave and dependable. Many wealthy Chinese erected statues of Sikh guards at their tombs, hoping they would be protected in the afterlife as well. We also found a grave with a pair of Chinese guards, which resembles the terracotta warriors in Qin Shi Huang's tomb.
Some tombs in Bukit Brown Cemetery were decorated with luxurious tiles not commonly seen around the cemetery. These tiles were typically used by Peranakans to decorate their homes. Now that they've moved on, these tiles were incorporated into their tomb designs as it represents their final resting place. There are many methods when decorating tombstones with tiles. This particular tomb uses transfer printing, a method used to describe textile and related printing processes in which the design is first printed onto a flexible non-textile substrate and later transferred by a separate process to a textile. Transfer printed tiles trace their roots back to the 18th century in England, produced by Johnson Tiles, a ceramic manufacturing company. The process enabled the fast and cheap creation of tiles with a huge variety of patterns and designs. Many of these tiles were imported into Singapore before World War I. The bilingual inscriptions seen here are also commonly found on Peranakan tombs. Another method is dust pressing, the compressing of nearly dried clay between metal molds. Originating from Europe in the 1840s, the tiles seen in this photo were produced by Danto Kaisha, a tileworks company in Hyogo, Japan. These tiles were used by local wealthy Peranakan families to decorate their graves. Production was driven by the British in India and Southeast Asia in the early 20th century, who taught the Japanese how to produce such tiles as they were viewed as the cheaper option compared to European manufacturers, whose tiles were considered too expensive to ship. Moving on, one interesting observation we made concerns the dating systems engraved on some of the tombstones. The year of Tan Pek Lien's death, as seen at the top right corner of his tombstone, is marked as 昭和17年, meaning Showa year 17. This system replaces the Gregorian calendar with the Japanese imperial calendar, in which the year of death would be the year of the current emperor's reign. From this, we can conclude that Tan passed away in 1942, on the 17th year of Emperor Showa's reign, with 1926 being his first year. Another interesting observation is the inscription on Chan Kok Sing's tomb denoting the year of his passing, carved onto the altar as 2604. This refers to the Japanese Koki year, starting in 660 BC when the first Japanese Emperor Jimmu ascended the throne. It is common to find dates based on the Koki calendar on tombs constructed during the Japanese occupation. In the 1970s, a round of exhumation was done to make way for the construction of the Pan Island Expressway. In 2018, Lornie Highway was built across the cemetery, causing public outcry. Ultimately, an estimated 3,700 graves were exhumed to make way for the roads, down from the original 5,000 initially announced. In addition, 2 MRT stations are slated to operate within the grounds of Bukit Brown Cemetery, once the construction of the upcoming Mount Pleasant housing estate is completed.
Hello.
Hi.
We are leaving this place
Yes, yeah.
to a more lively
Vicinity.
vicinity.
Bye.
Bye.
Say bye to Face Vlog. Bye. Ellie.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do we talk about this? You say barbecue, right? I don't think it's a barbecue. I think it's a barbecue.